Yo, what's up guys? My name is Samuel Leeds. Welcome to this week's Winners on a Wednesday. I got the most crazy guest on the show. This dude started with nothing in South Africa. He's now a multi-millionaire. I'm really honored to have helped him in property in the UK, but I'll tell you something, you need to watch this whole interview start to finish. Welcome, Arnon Barnes. So welcome to this week's Winners on a Wednesday. Arnon Barnes, listen dude, when we met you were already a winner. You were like multi-millionaire, killing it in business, killing it in property, and then you came to me because you wanted me to help you invest in the UK specifically, and you've achieved like literally so much, which we're going to unfold in this interview. But let me just ask you a question. Why did you come to me in terms of UK property investment?
Great question. First of all, thanks for inviting me. Excited to be here. Several things. First of all, one of the key things that I've learned on my journey to achieving success is choose your mentors, choose your teachers, choose the people you surround yourself with, choose them carefully.
Yeah.
And so doing a lot of research, looking online, and obviously speaking to friends of mine who are very successful businessmen in the UK, all the roads said Samuel Leeds. Everyone said Samuel. Now, the funny thing is we met 2015-ish.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
And I met you. We had a great connection. We spoke. And the funny thing is, now we close circle. We're sitting here at this table talking about, expanding my property portfolio, my property investments into the UK. And so I chose the UK because for years, I know it's the hottest place to buy property in Europe. I'm currently living in Holland, but obviously I'm in the UK a lot. And so I wanted to know that I wanted to work with people that are living and doing it.
Yes.
Because there's so many people out there who talk a good story, but they don't eat their own cooking. I wanted someone who eats their own cooking. And people that I trust at the deepest level, everyone said, you got to talk to Samuel.
And you do serious due diligence. Although you're very impulsive and fast-paced when you do business sometimes, you're also very careful. And you're Jewish as well.
Oh yeah, totally. And we hate losing money, right?
You hate losing. So I'm really honored that you've come to me. I know you've shared the stage with people like Robert Kiyosaki. You've spoken alongside Robert Kiyosaki many times.
Multiple times. Shared the stage with Robert, with his wife Kim. What an amazing woman. Several times had that privilege, have that pleasure.
You've been represented by the same company that promote Tony Robbins, Sir Richard Branson, like serious names. So when you reached out to me on the property front, I already knew who you were. In fact, I'd heard you speak on stage, so I was really humbled and honored that you reached out to me, and we were put in touch via Marcus de Maria.
Yeah.
And then now the fact that now we're now we're in my dining room. We've been sat in my living room, picking up the phone, doing deals. We're working on some really juicy projects.
Yeah, we actually found a really cool project that we're going to be looking at next week.
Yes, and we're looking at development. We're looking at some smaller stuff, some bigger stuff. Yeah. So why don't you just talk to me a little bit about your backstory, how you got started in property in the first place?
It's a funny story because, a lot of people know me as a businessman. I've made serious money in business, built businesses, sold businesses, built businesses, sold businesses. But growing up as a kid, my late father would actually invite my mum to meet him at a property that he just purchased. And I remember being dragged along. At the time, I might have been 8, 9 years old, maybe 10 years old. I've been dragged along with my mum to meet my father at a property that he just purchased. And I remember walking to all these properties and going up the driveway. This is back in South Africa. And my mum holding my hand, confronting my father with, why did you buy this dump? That was the theme of all these conversations. At first glimpse, my mum would walk up, see these houses, and the first thing she'd come out of her mouth, she would say, why did you invest in this dump? Yeah. Why did you buy this?
But your dad knew that the ugly houses make the most money.
Well, that's the thing. Now, I'm an 8, 9-year-old kid, right? What do I know? All I hear is, why did you buy this dump? And my father's calming her down. Don't worry, it's good. And then I remember, 2-3 months later, going back to the same home, and my mum being totally shocked, looking at the property, not believing the transformation that my father had created. So he'd buy these dumps, refurbish them, rebuild them, design them, and flip them or rent them. And so that was my first introduction into real estate.
Same stuff that we're doing now.
Exactly.
But this has gone on for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So your dad's been successful in property. Was he wealthy?
So my dad did very well through property. My background story you probably you know a little bit more about this. So I left South Africa when I was a kid. I moved on. I moved to Israel. My parents were divorced when I was about 12. I lost contact with my father when I was 14. I saw him one more time for a short visit when he came to visit from South Africa to Israel when I was 16. But I kind of lost all contact with him from the age of 14. I did see him one more time when I was 25. That's when I buried him. So my father had done well through property, but I didn't have that connection with him growing up.
And I know that now you are very successful in business, but you're also a great father. And I know you spend a lot of time with your kid Joshua.
Yeah.
Which is great. Because a lot of people that do well in business, they're so... I don't know your dad's story, but they're so focused on business that they sometimes lack in other areas. So it's great to see that you've almost flipped the cards on that.
And I think this was one of the drivers that also bring me to this table, right? Because I want to become as successful I can to be a positive role model for my son.
Yes.
I mean, every single person is a role model for someone. And either you're a role model what to be or what not to be. And I don't want to be a role model what not to be.
Yeah.
And my father, who bless him, and I'm at peace with the whole scenario and the story, he showed me exactly what not to be.
Yeah.
And that's why for me, having a son who I love dearly, who's a big part of my life, I want to show him what to be.
Yeah, because we go into business to provide for our families, to be the best version of ourselves for our families. But sometimes the main thing doesn't become the main thing anymore.
Yeah.
And we lose sight of why we started in the first place.
Absolutely.
So that was South Africa. How did you end up moving then? Because I know you've lived in lots of different countries.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit give me a summary of your story because it's so interesting.
In short and sweet, born in South Africa, grew up in Johannesburg. During the apartheid years, my family, Jewish, we grew up without any color, without religion. We had South Africans. We actually had a Zulu family who became my family. And during the apartheid years, it became very tough to maintain that kind of lifestyle. I didn't grow up with color. I didn't grow up with religion. I didn't grow up with it. We were all the same.
Yeah.
White, black, pink, green. We were all the same. And my parents at a young age decided that better to relocate. I moved to Israel, lived in Israel for a few years. I spent some time in the military where I learned some very powerful lessons, how to be focused, how to be disciplined.
And I see that in your business.
How to work as a team.
Yeah. But you run your business sometimes, you've got a massive heart, but you do run it very disciplined, almost military-like.
Yeah.
And even when you train, when I see you on stage, it's so unique.
And the reason why I guess that comes out is because I've seen how to get the best out of people.
Yeah.
And people need guidance. I need guidance. I need someone to say to me, like we did today, right? We sat down, no questions, open the laptop, let's look for properties, let's go online, boom, 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 boom. And it's sometimes what people need because I feel that the comfortable creates an uncomfortable life. And so if you want to push yourself, if I want to push myself, I've got to have structure around me. I need someone literally saying, okay, open the laptop, pick up the phone, let's call the agent, let's do this. And that's I guess, one of the reasons I am successful today is that I always had people holding me accountable.
Yeah.
And people are afraid of accountability. But yeah, I've seen the human spirit, and I know what the human spirit can do. Human beings can do great things when they have a supportive environment, when they have accountability around them, when they have a structure, when they have tools. The human spirit can be phenomenal, but I see human beings sometimes doing terrible.
Yeah.
Because, they're lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you moved to Israel, and you were in the military,
yeah.
How long did you serve?
3 years.
3 years.
3 full years, mandatory.
And then you ended up, you learned a lot of lessons from that. You ended up in Holland, in the Netherlands, set up a successful business. What was your first business?
Well, actually, my first business I started when I was 11 years old, selling toys from my uncle's toy store to kids at school.
So you're just one of these people, though. You're just one of these entrepreneurial people, and that's why you're a very interesting Winners Wednesday. Because a lot of people that come on Winners Wednesday, they met me as an employee, and then they became financially free. You met me as a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
The deals that we've done in the UK will still make you financially free again, but you've already done it 100 times over.
Yeah.
So but still, I thought you definitely need to be on the Winners Wednesday show. So how did you end up doing business in the Netherlands? Was that like a brand new?
Well, it's very simple. I had a UK based company which I sold And I exited that company. I made a lot of cash. And I met a gentleman living in the UK investing in property in the Netherlands. And I was sitting around, I had a good exit. And he kept on saying to me, why don't you come to Holland, look at some property deals. It's very interesting. Come. And I was like, no. And I remember saying to him at one point, I said to him, he was pushing me, come to Holland. And I threw out my last objection. And that was, well, how long is the flight? And he said, 45 minutes. I said, okay, I'm coming.
Yeah, that was a bad objection.
Yeah, because I was hoping he was going to say like 4 hours or 5 hours, right? I mean, this is in my late 20s and never been to Holland before. And so he says like a 45, 50-minute flight.
It's like a bus.
Yeah, exactly.
We have people coming from the Netherlands to our UK events all the time. You've seen them. Yeah. It's a nothing journey.
Yeah. And so I moved to Holland, bought some property there. Actually, I have a 7-figure property portfolio in Holland. I am big in the serviced apartments space. So I have quite a few apartments and buildings in Amsterdam. But I've also done
serviced accommodation in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
It's funny because the principles that we use property for, we have international students all the time. It's the same. Yeah. Like if you're investing in America, if you're investing in Holland, Europe, England, the principles are the same. And it's so interesting because sometimes people think, I am a UK property investor and I'm UK, I'm British, I know the UK market. But that doesn't mean that the strategies can't be applied elsewhere. People love to come up with excuses, this doesn't work in my area, this doesn't work in my country. Actually, it probably does. And if it doesn't, you just need to tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
You've always got to be creative.
Yeah.
You've always got to be fluid. So, tell me about your portfolio then. So you sold a business, you invested the money into the Netherlands property.
Yeah, so one of the bigger mistakes that I made is I moved to Holland. I had a lot of cash because I had sold one of my companies. And I took it and I threw it all into property.
Yes.
And then when the market tanked...
Yeah, and what year was this?
This is 2008.
So you threw all your money into property in 2008?
End of 2007, 2008.
Just before it tanked?
Threw everything into property and then it tanked. Now, because I was focusing primarily on serviced apartments, so obviously tourism dropped. Not only did tourism drop, but the prices per night dropped.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of stones, I had a lot of property, but I had no cash.
Right.
And so then my mindset at that moment was not to sell.
Because that's what most people would have done.
Major
Worst
mistake.
thing.
Major mistake. And I realized that I just had to ride the wave.
Yeah.
My mindset was if I could get to 2012, 2013, I will be okay.
Yeah.
And I did. My properties did okay. They generated cash flow. I actually became financially free through that property investment portfolio, those investments that I did. Because when I sold my business, I had cash, but I wasn't financially free.
Yeah.
And so I invested into property, and that created my financial freedom for me.
But the thing is, it's a really good lesson, that, and we can't skip over it because you bought properties and then the market crashed. Normally in a recession, rents go up. Because everybody has to rent because they can't buy.
Yes.
But in your case, you had a double whammy negative blow because not only did the property prices drop, but because it was serviced apartments and tourism was struggling and everything, your cash flow dropped. That's like terrible. Yeah. Most people would have sold and would have taken the hit, but you said no. I'm gonna hold it out, knowing that ultimately you're gonna win.
And the reason for that being is because I knew there would be a recovery.
Yeah, of course.
I look at history. History always repeats itself. You've said this. I say this. I'm a big believer of it. History will always repeat itself. And so I knew that there was going to be a turning point. I look at other great property investors, people who've done really well in property. Sometimes they've been in a situation where their property portfolio is down millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. And then their philosophy is, let me just ride the wave.
Yeah.
Let me just ride this wave 3, 4, 5 years. As long as I don't sell, I'll come out of it. And that's what happened to me. And I've done really well with that.
That's so exciting. Yeah. So when your properties went up, because I know a few years later, they suddenly shot up in value. The rents went good again. How did you feel? Well,
amazing. Actually, it's funny because I think I told you a little bit earlier. I have a property, one of my properties. So I have a few. One of my properties, which is a building, 4 floors, with a shop at the bottom. I bought this property about 6 years ago. I bought it for just over 500,000. Just bought it over 500,000, and cash flow was positive. I have a loan. I had a loan on this for about 340,000 from a bank, and I got an offer on this property that I decided to take because it was just so good. And so I sold this property for $1 million, and I walked away with a really nice profit. And
because you bought that property for how much?
Well, just over 500,000.
But
my mortgage on it was just over 300. And
what year did you buy it with that one?
This was 2014.
14. Yeah. So you bought it in 2014.
Yeah.
And then you sold it last year, 2019. Yeah. You bought it for just over 500,000, and you sold it for $1 million.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Cool million. Yeah.
That's
and my loan was just over 300K.
Right.
So I had a business partner in this deal. But so I've done really well in property, and I'm a big believer in property. And I think that a lot of people who can create income, business owners, business leaders, even people who are in a job, if you have the capacity to create money, that's not enough. You become one-dimensional. You have to be able to put the money in a place that it can create more money.
Yeah.
A lot of people know how to make money. They don't know how to grow their money.
Yeah, yeah. So it's almost like, my friend James Sinclair talked about this as fast pound, slow pound. So fast pound might be a business that's going to create fast cash. And then that cash you then dump into property smartly, which is then going to give you slow pound. Now the fast pound might be, I know a lot of my students, they do deal sourcing. So they package and they sell deals. They make £3,000 every time they sell a deal. And they'll sell 5 deals a week, and they're making like serious cash flow. Or they'll do rent to rent, serviced accommodation. They make serious cash flow. But then with that cash, they'll then put it over here into more slow, long-term capital appreciation. And the two together, it's like riding a boat with 2 oars. And I think that's where true financial freedom and wealth building comes from.
And wealth, that's the key word. Wealth is created over time.
Yeah.
And I think this is so important to understand. Achieving financial freedom is not that difficult.
Dude, you've seen my FF challenges. You can do it in no time.
Yeah, and this is what I love about it is really it's a myth buster. Yeah. People think you got to dedicate 3, 4, 5, 10 years to achieve financial freedom. But if you break it down and you look at the actions that are necessary to take, you can achieve financial freedom relatively fast. I mean, what you're doing is insane.
Yeah, that's not normal.
Yeah, it's not normal, right?
No, but 6 months is very doable.
Oh, totally. 3 months is doable.
It is.
If you're focused and committed.
And if you have the right knowledge and education.
Absolutely. And this is, it's funny you say that because a lot of people are not willing to educate themselves. And I say, if you're not willing to educate yourself, life will educate you.
Yeah.
And so I dropped out of school. I didn't finish school. I went to help my mom put food on the table, put clothes on my younger sister, baby brother. My dad left, as I said. But one thing I knew that I had to educate myself. And so I picked up the books. And, you mentioned I shared the stage with Robert Kiyosaki. What was funny is that one of the first books that really got me on the path to achieving financial freedom and start thinking different outside of the 9 to 5 until you're 65, right? One of the first books that got me on that path was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And I know you're a big fan as well, right?
Of course.
So when I shared the stage with Robert Kiyosaki, I actually shared with him that I would never in a million years would have believed that after reading his book, being inspired by his book, building what I've built, creating financial freedom, investing in property and built what I've built, end up sharing the stage with him, I would never have.
Yeah, like talking, teaching the same audience.
Yeah.
And I know you've also shared the stage and taught alongside people like Les Brown.
Yes.
You've done some amazing things. Why did you choose the UK? You've done very successfully in the Netherlands. Well, I think the Netherlands is a great place to invest if you know what you're doing. You've invested, or at least your dad invested in South Africa, which you've seen. Of everywhere in the world, you're a global businessman.
Correct.
You travel the world.
Yes.
You have businesses. You do training all across the world. Why did you, even though you don't live in the UK, why have you not only come to me, but why did you choose the UK as a nation to invest in property?
Great question. So first of all, I believe that the center of the world is London. Like you said, I travel the world. I do 90 trips around the world in a year.
Yeah.
And so for me, London is the center of the world. Everything follows London, in my opinion.
What about New York?
Again, New York is America. London is the world. If you're setting up an office, you want to set up an office in London. If you have an office in New York, you're not going to capture all of Europe. You're not going to capture Asia. Asia follows London more now today than it does New York.
Interesting. It'd be very interesting to see people's comments on that, because I'm sure that some people would agree, some people wouldn't be so sure.
Totally, yeah.
Because it's a little bit of a subjective thing. Yeah. I agree. That's why I have my offices in London.
I have friends I have a friend who's a billionaire with a B. He's a hotelier, owns hotels all over the world. I've got other friends who are in big construction businesses, and they all raise finance from London. Yeah. They fly into the UK, they sit in Mayfair, they sit in that area, and that's where they meet the finance houses.
So if anyone's listening to this who's from London, you have no excuses.
Listen, I teach all over the world. I train all over the world. I have never met any of my students that live in the UK, and I have a lot of students from the UK, and I've got a lot of people that I work with in Belgium, Germany, Holland, rich countries, right? First world country. I've never met any student come to me and say to me, Arnon, if I could just get to Uganda, my financial life would be okay. I mean, if you're not doing financially well in the UK, living in the UK, Belgium, Holland, Germany, first world country, if you're not doing well financially, living in any of these countries, there's something you don't know.
Yeah. Well, you suck.
Totally. I mean, it's easier to get rich in a country like this than not.
Especially if you moan about it, then you suck.
Yeah.
And when the banks are giving out pretty much free money. If you can't, in a first world country, when the banks are giving out pretty much free money, 3%, if you can't set up a business or buy properties that are going to make profit, and you can't raise the little bit of finance that you need, then you're
dead in the water. You're dead in the water.
Yeah, you are. And when people say things like, I haven't got any money. Great. Raise the money then. Oh, but I don't know how to do that. Well, learn to do that.
Sure. Pick up a book. I've got a great friend. I was recently visiting Israel over the New Year, and I spent time with some really good friends of mine from the past. And they look at me today and they say, I want some. How did you do it? Because they know where I grew up I was the poorest kid in the block, right? I was the poorest kid in the neighborhood. I was hungry, I was determined, but my mom couldn't put me through a fancy university or college. I didn't have any of that stuff. But today, I'm the wealthiest.
Yeah.
And so it's very funny. It's very contradictory based on where we came up from. No one would have bet on me, right?
That's the same as me, man. I was the person that was like the silly one, the least intelligent, the worst academically, the getting into trouble, and now I'm the wealthiest person in my family.
Exactly. And so my friends, they say, I want some, right? In the beginning, their conversations with me were, you had luck.
Yeah.
You were lucky.
Yeah.
And what I say to them, you didn't see the days when I was actually investing in property in Holland, where I would walk in the rain with an umbrella that was broken, being pulled back, going from viewing to viewing to viewing. I used to view 6, 7, 8 properties a day in, day out, for weeks on end, until I'd identify the property that I'd like, right? And nobody sees that. So the first phrase from their perspective was, oh, you had luck.
Yeah.
Now they become more intelligent. Now they're understanding that, wait a minute, there's something more than luck here. And now they say, I want some. And they say, how did you do it? And I say to them, well, why don't you start reading a book? And they say, what? I'm like, yeah, read a book, go to a seminar, take a course. And I've even directed my friends to buying Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. They go out, they get excited, they buy the book. They haven't read nothing. And so when you say, if you live in the UK, how come you're not successful, or how come people don't, achieve financial freedom, is because I think a lot of people don't have enough pain. People are way too comfortable.
Yeah.
And so for me, achieving financial freedom, investing and continuing to invest and expand my property activities in the UK is that I have pain. I will not allow myself to not live my full potential.
Yeah.
I could easily switch off tomorrow, but I don't want to rot.
Yeah, people will message you though on Facebook and say, I've got this property question, or can you help me with this? But then they won't take a 4-hour trip to attend the program.
Oh, it's crazy.
So it's like, well, if you really wanted to know the answers, if you really wanted to get trained up, I mean, come on, man. What's wrong? What's going on?
Yeah. And I see that all the time. My belief is when commitment and preparation meet, success will follow.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. I've always been committed, and I've always been willing to be prepared.
Yeah.
And that's why success has followed.
So what's next? I know we're doing some crazy good deals. We've booked a lot of viewings just today.
Yeah.
We're also looking at some land to develop as well with my team,
Yeah.
which is really exciting. Like, what's your plan in 2020?
Well, for me, I have to acquire properties in the UK. We're looking at a few deals. We've got a few things in the pipeline. We've got a few viewings lined up already. It's about acquisitions now. It's about, just making it happen and expanding the property activities that I already do in Europe to the UK.
Yeah, it's really cool having you as well, because I know you're doing some teaching at crash courses, which is incredible. Because the thing is, a lot of people have said to me, Samuel, we want to hear different perspectives. We want to get different people up. Also, I physically can't go to every single training event that we run, but having people that I trust enough to be able to share the stage with me or teach something on my stage with my audience, it's like they need to be, number one, they need to have a really big heart. Yeah. They need to be there for the right reasons. Yeah. Number two, they got to really know their stuff. They got to really know their industry, been there, done there, got the t-shirt. And number three is they need to be a great communicator and a good friend. Now, you ticked all those boxes. So when I rang you up and said, dude, how would you feel about coming down to the crash course and sharing? And you came down and you shared, and everybody loved it, got results from it, went and got deals. I mean, it was a great feeling for me. But why, when you're financially free and you're making money doing property, this is a question I get asked all the time. I'm now going to ask you the question: why would you bother to spend the time teaching other people to do it rather than just focusing solely on investing and making money in property yourself? What would you share? I think
it's one of the most important questions you just asked there is, why would I do it? Financially, I don't need to do it. I don't need to be here. I've worked hard enough, as you can see, that I don't need to be doing this financially. But one of the most impactful days of my life is the day after I teach. And why is that? Because the day after I teach, I get all the messages.
Yeah.
I get the messages on Facebook. I get the messages on Instagram. And the messages are like this: Arnon, I just wanted to thank you because you gave me a second opportunity. I get messages of people saying to me, Arnon, before the program, I wanted to commit suicide. And now you've given me a new shot, a new opportunity, a new perspective. And for me, those messages, no money in the world can buy them.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. That's what gets me so fulfilled and gets me going. And that's why I love doing it.
Yeah.
Because, listen, I wasn't always, to be blessed as I am financially. I came from a rough background, and I remember there were times where I was on my knees, looking up and asking the big man to help me out, and I remember making commitments and even saying to myself, if I could just get myself out of this situation and come good financially, I promise that when I become successful, I will help people.
Yeah.
So I feel like today I'm just fulfilling the mission. I'm just, giving back and fulfilling my word. And I believe if you're successful, it's your obligation to send the elevator back down.
Yeah.
And I mean, what else would I be doing with my life, right? Well, how much TV can you watch? How much football games can you watch? How much traveling can you do? It's all good, but I have a greater sense of responsibility of helping more people. Because my belief is, if I could do it, didn't come from a rich background. I moved from South Africa to Israel. I was like a refugee, no money. I couldn't barely speak the language. My mom was struggling. My mom would work 2-3 jobs a day. So if I could sit here at this table and have these successes, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Like, really, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
And
I think that just comes through, man. That spills out of you and oozes out of you. And some people might not be able to relate to that. Some people might think, man, if I became financially free, I'd just go and live on a beach somewhere. But until you become financially free, you realize that actually success is good, but significance tastes a lot better. And I know that you are financially in a position where you don't need to be on this podcast. You don't need to be coming to the crash course with me tomorrow. Yes. Like, you don't need to do that. But I know, I get it. It gives you a kick in the exact same way it gives me a kick. And I don't even take a salary from the training business. Like, I do it because I love it so much. However, of course, it does open up doors. because it's nice when people know who you are. They say that in business, you want people. It's all about who you know, but actually,
it's who knows you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's so powerful. So from a branding perspective, being on stage, coming on podcasts, even being here on Winners Wednesday, it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
So why did you want to come on Winners Wednesday? Because I know we spoke about it. You were like, dude, I'd love to be on the show.
I think one of the key things for me is I always want to be inspired. And I was inspired by you and your mission and the amount of people you touch. I know you've got a list next to your bed of all the people that have achieved financial freedom. These are things that talk to me. Once you go through the toy phase, once you go through the beach bum phase, and once you've gone through that phase, you look at life. At least I did. I looked at life and I said, okay, now what? When I sold my first company and I got serious money,
it's 7 figures.
Yeah, when I looked at my bank account, when I sold my first business and I looked at that bank account and I saw that number in my bank account, I was excited and I was over the moon for exactly 23 seconds. And then I looked at that and I said, now what?
Yeah.
And so I did the beach thing. I did the travel thing. But I believe that there's so much more of us to give. And so I'm here to give like you are.
You know what? I did the same thing. When I was completely financially free, I went to Africa. I started doing charity stuff. I climbed up Kilimanjaro. I wrote an album. I learned to play the trumpet. I joined a band. I traveled, but it gets to a point where it's like, I want to impact people.
Yeah.
I don't just want to go around exploring and adventuring and taking and having fun. I want to actually impact people and leave a legacy. So it's great to see what you're doing. I know this isn't the last time you'll be on the show. We'll be documenting stuff. We've got some crazy exciting deals. So if people come to a property investors crash course, is there a chance that they might get to meet you then?
Actually, I hope they do.
Yeah.
And I hope they come up and shake my hand and share with me why they're there and what is their pain, why they have to achieve success. Because for me, it's not about just showing up, listening, taking a few notes and going home. I want people to actually take action and do something.
Yeah.
They say a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. I don't want them just to have a little bit of knowledge, just come to the crash course, spend a day, 2 days there. I want them to take this seriously. Because it's their life. What
did you think when you first... Because I know we get a lot of successful people coming to the crash course. Some people that have got nothing, no money, no credit. Other people come and they've got money, they want to invest it. What did you first think? Like, what was your experience when you first came to the crash course?
I was surprised, positively surprised, because on day one in the crash course, you share some really powerful tools for anyone, whether you're a starter, whether you're seasoned, how to source some really good deals. And I was like, is this for real? Are you really giving all this information away? And it just showed me that I was in the right place. Yeah. Because I want to be with people that are givers. I don't want to be in an area or in a space of takers.
Because it's like everything you learn. The crash course is just like it's just like my brain and everything I've learned about property over the last 10, 12 years condensed into 2 days. I know there are more. I know we have advanced training programs. We have the academy and things like that. But they say that it all starts at the crash course. Yeah. And I really believe that for so many people.
For me, it wasn't a seminar. It was a do-and-all.
Yeah.
Because, people are rolling up their sleeves, getting down, dirty, picking up the phone, doing some really cool stuff. So for me, like if anybody's listening to this or watching this recording, I'd say, don't even think twice. I mean, how can you not get into property? Property has created more millionaires than any other asset class that exists. So if you're living in the UK, if you're living in Europe right now, oh my goodness, how can you ignore property?
And do you think it's a good time to buy right now?
For me, the answer would be absolutely yes. And there's several reasons for that. First of all, if I look at property in a whole, I know that the UK is not creating more land. Divorce rates, sky high. So if you're in a couple and now you're getting divorced, now you need a new property, right?
Yeah, suddenly one family turns into two families.
Two families, exactly. Birth rate through the roof. And so, one of the biggest mistakes that my family made, my grandfather made, many years ago, he lived in South Africa. He had a huge home in South Africa. And he lived there with my grandma, his wife, and his 2 daughters, my mum and my aunt. And eventually when my mum and her sister got married and left the house, my grandparents were left in this big house. And they realized they don't need such a big house. So they decided to sell the property. And they came to my father, property investor, and they said to him, Victor, we're going to sell our house. What do you suggest we do with the money we make? With the money, the profits that we're going to earn? And my dad said to them, look, whatever you sell, take about 10% of that money and enjoy it. Maybe travel, see the world, use it for you. And 90% of it, reinvest it into property. Go out, buy another 4, 5, 6 properties and just rent it out. And they thought about it, and they thought about it, and they sold the property, and they put all the money in the bank. And my grandparents have passed away recently, not too long ago. But until the day they passed away, they always said one of the biggest mistakes that they made was not listening to my father, that they didn't invest in property. And so for me, the question is, if not now, then when? And if not property, then what? Yeah. And if not you, then who? And so it's a phenomenal time. There's free money in the marketplace.
Yeah.
The banks are literally saying to you, here's money.
And the bottom line is, it's just a number. It's just straightforward numbers and stats. And
yes.
there's a massive shortage of UK property, and there's an overpopulation of people. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the deals that we're doing together. Yeah. What advice would you give to someone that was considering booking onto the Property Investors Crash Course?
Come, play full out. Just be open and do whatever it takes to win. And get uncomfortable. Get uncomfortable. Being comfortable with getting uncomfortable, whether it's picking up the phone, speaking to an agent, viewing a property. And one more thing, if you treat this journey seriously, read the books, take the courses, go to every seminar you can, because staying in this space, in this energy, in this environment, pretty much will guarantee success.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I'm sitting here is because I want to be around successful people.
Well, 90% of success is just showing up.
Totally.
We know each other because we showed up.
Yeah.
Like we've been at the same training courses together, and I think people miss that as well. The networking opportunities to get in a room. So anyone listening to this, if you're on YouTube, go on the description. It will give a link to the crash course. If you're listening on a podcast, go down to www.property-investors.co.uk. Get booked onto the crash course. If you've been holding off, now's the time to do it. You heard from the big man himself, Arnon. Arnon, thanks so much for coming on the show. You're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Samuel. Great to be here.
I hope you enjoyed that video. I don't want you to subscribe to the channel. I don't want you to watch any other videos. I want you to do one thing, and that is get your tickets to the next Property Investors Crash Course. I want you to be there so bad because I know it's going to change your financial life forever. So there's a free ticket right here. Get booked on. It's right here. Listen, I'm not going anywhere until you click that button and book on. Do it, and do it right now. Have you booked on yet? I hope you have. It's still here. Go ahead. Time is running out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get booked.